Hi everyone, it's jwho, and I am going to make one of my first videos about prepping for the Step 2 CK exam. And I thought it'd be really appropriate to start here since I just actually took Step 2 CK about a week ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my mind right now. And so I know everyone's really different and everyone has their own particular ways of studying, but I just want to tell you my own personal study plan and how I got through the whole study period for step two. And I still don't know my score yet, so I'm not sure exactly how I did, but I did think that I was probably as prepared as I possibly could have been for this exam. So first of all, I did, I took about 2 months off for dedicated study time. And I know that's a lot more than most people, but it's just I did not do as well as I had hoped on step one. And so I really needed step two to bolster my application. And so I took 2 whole months off essentially. I was doing like a little bit of research on the side during that first month, but the second month was like very focused. And I know most people don't need that much time, and that's totally fine. I personally didn't feel like I was that prepared coming out of third year, but that's totally okay. Like if you did great during third year, that's awesome. If you didn't do so well on the shelves, like that's perfectly fine as well. Like this is where you are now, and you're just gonna have to deal with what you have and move forward. And that's all that you should care about right now. And so what I did is I really focused on UWorld, and I think that's pretty much a unanimous opinion all around. You just need to do UWorld every day. And I actually was at a point where I had done enough questions where I could do like an average of 60 a day and still like finish about maybe like 5 days out. So what I did to just for my own sanity is I had a really hard time doing 80 questions a day and also reading and also watching videos for some reason. So I did 80 questions one day, and the next day I would do 40, and that would be my day to catch up on other things like videos or maybe like reviewing some of my old notes. So those would be like my review days, and I would usually take also an hour off to work out or run or do something fun that day too. So I had my like hard 80 question days and my like easier 40 question days. Again, this was purely what I did. If something else better works for you, like by all means do it. I just kind of have a relatively like short attention span for some reason, and I sometimes need to switch things up a little bit. And so UWorld, like make sure to go over all of the answer and explanations. I would go over all of the questions, even if I got them right, because I want to see what were in the other answer choices. And to be honest, like a lot of these other answer choices actually appeared on my exam. So I do think that was definitely worthwhile to do, even though it probably will take you twice or 3 times as long to go over it. Um, and this had been my second pass already because I had done my first pass through all of third year, as most people do. So a lot of the questions were seemingly were pretty similar. Um, I think what was most important about my approach to UWorld was that I looked at every question and I asked myself, what will I do to not miss this question again? I think it's really easy once you see a question for the second time to be like, oh, I know this. Like this is a DVT, PE. Like I've seen a million of these questions. But I think what you need to remind yourself, especially in the case if you get the question wrong, is like, what will I do to make sure that I will never get this question wrong again? Like, what is unique about this question? And what is the pattern that I need to look for next time? And I think these are really good questions to ask yourself. In terms of other resources I use, I really didn't use much else. I did try to look at what's it called, first aid, although it just wasn't really helpful. If anything, probably first aid for step one was even more helpful because I found myself going back to look at a lot of the renal and pulm stuff just because I really liked the diagrams they had, and I found that actually pretty helpful. Yeah, I really didn't use any other books. I did use the online med-ed videos, and I think some other med students have talked about this before. So they're completely free and they're amazing. If you want to subscribe, they have some pre-made like notes and also like test questions for you as well. I haven't used those, so I can't personally give my opinion on those, but I do think the videos are quite good. Dr. Williams is very thorough, and he really gives you some really great algorithms that I think are super useful for, especially for medicine, because as you probably have realized already doing UWorld, everything's pretty much an algorithm, and most of your questions are going to be, what is the next best step, or what is the best test, and he just kind of like really lays it out in a beautiful and like easy to memorize and logical layout. What I did find is towards the end of my studying period, I felt like I was really mastering certain concepts, and I found myself almost like filling in his notes. So I found that to be kind of a good sign that I was really able to not only like follow him, but also to kind of anticipate what he was going to say. So I guess my advice is to just kind of try and do that, try to anticipate like what is he going to say next, or what is the next step in the algorithm before he even writes it. And I find that kind of a good tool. Um, and so also with his videos, I basically took notes on all his videos. As you can see, I really like color. I'm a big color coder. And so I basically wrote down like all his beautiful algorithms in this notebook, and I made one for every subject. So this one's for medicine, which is like a really pretty one. It's also the thickest of all of them, as you can probably imagine. This one's for surgery. This is gen surgery and specialty surgery combined. There's a bunch of them as well. And I also had a book too. I can't find it right this second, but it has a lot of the concepts from UWorld that I have a really hard time memorizing. So that can be like, for example, like the formulas for like the Winters formula, or like the formula for compensation in metabolic alkalosis, or various other things like, oh, that hemoglobin dissociation curve. And so things I have a really hard time with. And so I would just kind of draw them all in that book. And I would do this usually about every 5 days or so. It's just like kind of go through that book and just make sure I know everything. And what I also found helpful, it's about like this big, and you can get one really easily off of Amazon or at Staples. And I just basically copied down all the algorithms over and over and over again, and some of the diagrams over and over again, just to make sure that I actually knew it. And I find that really helpful too, because it's less of that like sort of passive memorization process and more of the active memorization process. And oh, I can't believe I almost forgot this, but Anki was probably one of the biggest tools in terms of me feeling like I succeeded in my step 2 studying. If you guys have never used Anki, basically these are flashcards that use the concept of spaced repetition, and what that means is, and I can talk about this more in another video, is basically it kind of reshuffles your cards for you and pulls them out depending on how well you know the card. So for example, if you don't know the card as well, then it will give it to you more often, as opposed to a card that you know really well, and they'll probably wait a couple of days to give it to you, maybe a couple of weeks, even if you know it really, really well. And so it kind of just like coordinates that all for you. And I mean, I had like thousands upon thousands of Anki cards, because I basically made them for any questions I got wrong, any concepts I wanted to see again. And they were really helpful because they just remind you day after day, hey, like you still don't know this, hey, and you still memorize this. And like I honestly probably got a couple of questions right just because of Anki. Like there were things that I would never have remembered if it weren't for Anki. So I highly recommend Anki. If you don't use Anki, I highly recommend some kind of flashcard system, because it's so much information and it's extremely, extremely hard to remember all of it for the sort of duration of your whole studying period. So that's about it in terms of the resources I use. I didn't really use that many resources. I think what's really difficult about studying for med school exams in general is that you have so many resources and not all that much time. So you definitely want to find the ones that work for you and just really focus on that. And that's what I decided to do for step two because I know in step one I was pretty overwhelmed by the number of resources there. So, yeah, in step two, I just knew I just need to focus, and I think that really helped me stay sane pretty much throughout the whole process, and also stay really organized as well. I also had an Excel sheet every day where I basically had the number of questions I had left, and I would just put in like how many questions I did each day as sort of a countdown. I know that's like not super helpful because I mean UWorld does the same thing, but it was just a weird sense of fulfillment I would get from filling that out at the end of the day. And so when you're studying for these exams, any kind of encouragement really helps. So that was my little piece of encouragement each day. And also, really take care of yourselves. Like, go exercise, make good food for yourselves. Like, I cooked a lot during my step two period because I just believe that really good nutrition is extremely important for studying. Maintain good sleep hygiene. Try to sleep at a decent hour. Try not to stay up too late. And also try to get enough sleep because I don't know about you, but it's really hard for me to focus and memorize a lot of things when I'm like pretty deprived of sleep. So, yeah, definitely take care of yourselves. And I will probably make a lot more videos on just, taking care of yourselves during exams in general. But I hope this video was somewhat helpful to those of you who are studying for step two. Best of luck. And if you have any questions, feel free to write down below and I'll try to respond, okay? All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.